It's Thursday, August 1st, 2024, and a lot of things are going on in the world. So we'll be talking about those and seeing what folks have to say about a number of these things that are taking place in this day and time. Hamas military chief was killed in an airstrike, according to Israel. So that is something that is on the news, and that is definitely something that is being reported and all along those lines. So Israel says it killed the leader of Hamas armed wing last month. So that is something that is being reported for sure. And F-16s have arrived to help Ukraine fight Russia. And definitely, folks are asking what is AIM 9X, because apparently this is one of Ukraine's F-16s that is armed with cutting edge air to air missiles. So Ukraine receives its first F 16 fighter jets after the long wait. So that is something else that is in the news, as there are a number of conflicts, and we were talking about that yesterday around the world and that are going on in a regular way. And Italy is opening its controversial migrant centers in Albania. So from August, migrants seeking refugee in Italy could be taken to Albania pending their asylum decision. So Italy plans to open migrant camps in Albania, and that's facing more delays, but definitely that is something that we are seeing as well. And the suspect in the fatal Southport stabbing at a Taylor Swift themed event has been identified as Axel Maxwani Radakabani. Definitely, that is something that folks are saying that he has been named as in the courts as restrictions are lifted. So the 17-year-old boy is charged with the murder of three girls after the stabbing at the Taylor Swift themed event in Southport. And the Medvedev kicked out of the Olympics in brutal development for Aussie gold and all along those lines. So definitely, it looks like Paris Olympics are still going on. Simone Biles is competing in the all around, and the USA women's soccer wins group after third straight win to open the Olympics. So definitely looks like the U.S. women are doing good in soccer. And I did watch a little bit of Katie Ledeski's. I actually watched the entirety of Katie Ledeski's race on yesterday and all along those lines. So it was an amazing race. I know that Rick Rosner, who's here with me as well, has been watching some of the Olympics also. And Elon Musk has accepted the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's challenge to a fight. So apparently there's an escalating war of words, and apparently they are saying that they will get in the ring together. So could be Musk versus Maduro. The billionaire has accepted a bizarre fight challenge from the Venezuelan president. So we're going to see if this actually takes place or what goes on in that space and all along those lines. And the U.S. and Russia are carrying out a massive prisoner swap that is expected to include Evan Gershkovich and Paul Whelan. So it looks like those prisoners, who a lot of folks have been wondering when they would be returning, will be making a return trip to the United States in the near future with this big prison swap. And the body of a Hezbollah military commander was found in the Beirut rubble, according to security sources. So, definitely a number of things are going on in the Middle East in the whole notion of what else is going on. And I did see the because Jacoby and others had told me about it, and I think we got a couple of reporters online, and maybe we'll get them on either Friday or some other days. But I did know that we have a couple of folks that are associated with me, as well as some that are associated with the network, that are at the convention taking place in Chicago of the National Association of Black Journalists that Donald Trump spoke at, and all along those lines. So definitely that will be interesting to hear their response and all in that space. But let me tell you some other things that are going on in the U.S. news, and then I see that I've got Dan Worthington with me as well as Rick Rosner. We'll see if anybody else appears as well, because definitely a lot of folks are talking about a number of things, including the Kamala Harris that definitely pushed back a little bit about Trump's claims about her black identity and all along those lines, because I think he was saying that he thought that she was always Indian until recently, when she has been identified more as a black woman, and all along those lines. So definitely that was an interesting part of the conversation. There were several other interesting parts, including his defense of J.D. Vance and some of the other things that he was saying, including what he had done for the African American community and all along those lines. And it looks like another area that Rick knows very well, which is Denver. Denver area wildfires are turning deadly as California park fires torches an area larger than Los Angeles. So California wildfire activity is 2,816% higher this year and has already spawned one of the largest in state history. So that is something going on in California where they are worrying about the fires in that area. And Senate Democrats are teeing up for a vote on child tax credits in an election year pitch to families. So Senate Republicans are set to block a child tax credit expansion, and they're to vote on the Senate to vote on a major tax bill that will expand child tax credit and business breaks. So definitely, it looks like there's a lot of things going on, including the National Hurricane Center tracking a robust tropical wave and seeing how that could impact things as well. So Invest 97L is formed in the Caribbean and the potential to bring weekend storms to southwest Florida. So definitely looks like there might be some weather brewing in that area as well. And of course, folks are still waiting to hear who Kamala Harris will be picking as her vice president. I think she said she's going to have an announcement by this weekend because she's expecting to hold her first rally with their running mate on Tuesday in Philadelphia. And there's some speculation that it could be Mark Kelly, could be Pete Buttigieg, it could be a number of other folks, even though some folks like Gretchen Whitmer and North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper have already dropped out of the race. And Sonia Macy's mother is calling 911, called 911 to report her daughter was having a mental breakdown the day before she was killed. And her mother is now said that she called 911 and asked the police not to hurt her daughter before that particular shooting. So definitely we're having some folks that are wondering about the impact of that particular police shooting and whether the police were acting out of um, good faith or if they did not do what they should have been doing in that case and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out in the conversation around gun control and in the conversation around uh, police limitations or how far police should go in their investigation. So it'll be very interesting to see what folks have to say about that as well. And it looks like Nicole Amia has been sentenced to 20 years for stabbing a teen in Minnesota. So it looks like he's got a 20 years for fatally stabbing a teenager on a river tubing trip. So that's something else that is going on as well. And I mentioned Kamala's VP pick. It looks like Josh Shapiro is becoming the clear betting favorite to be Kamala Harris's VP and all in that space. Even though I'm hearing a lot of people that are thinking that it could be somebody like Mark Kelly or one of the other ones as well. And 14 have been arrested at Comic Con in an anti human trafficking sting in San Diego. So definitely, it looks like Attorney General Rob Bonta and the San Diego Human Trafficking Task Force have targeted human traffickers at a comic convention in San Diego. So 14 sex buyers were arrested and 10 victims were recovered in this particular human trafficking sting at Comic Con. So Comic Cons are very popular, but apparently they have also hit a major setback as well. And in Michigan, on another note, then I'll bring in Rick and Dan. Michigan restaurant workers are responding to a minimum wage ruling. So the Michigan Supreme Court ruling will result in a big minimum wage hike next year. So it looks like minimum wage could be rising for 860,000 Americans. So definitely, this will be interesting to see how that goes on. And they're even saying that restaurant owners are fearing the domino effect of the minimum wage increase as well. So, like I said, we'll bring in Rick and also Dan as well. We got a lot of things going on in the world and all along those lines. First thing I got to ask you is what's going on with Elon Musk accepting a fight to with the Venezuelan president? Because apparently they have gotten together and he's agreed to a fight and all along those lines. I'm thinking that Elon Musk has better things to do with his EVs and a number of
Well,
other.
I think people, both liberal and conservative in America, can get behind this fight. Maduro is a jerk, apparently an election liar. That the opposition says they have copies of the ballots or the tallies that indicate that the opposition got more than twice as many votes as Maduro did, while Maduro is claiming he got 51% of the vote, which, anyway, he's a terrible guy. So it would be nice to see him get punched.
So it could be a good punching and all along those lines. So it could be quite interesting to see what goes on in that regard. So it could be quite fascinating, and we'll see if Elon Musk gets punched as well, because not everybody is an Elon Musk fan either. So it could be an interesting undercard, maybe of a major fight or something along those lines. Well, Dan, what do you think? Are you looking forward to this fight? Should it transpire? Because they are saying that they agreed to this fight.
I take it that you'd like to see Elon Musk get punched, Lee.
I don't really have because like I said, I've got some friends that are big on EVs. I actually one of my good friends is a big fan of EVs, and Elon Musk is a supporter of EVs as well. So I don't know that I want to see
Well,
him.
I definitely think Maduro should be punched out, but it depends on if Musk has enough skill to do it, right?
Yeah, it depends
So
on
yeah,
depends on what his boxing skills are and whether he's got those kind of boxing abilities. I don't know either of their boxing abilities. Maybe they're going to get trained by professional fighters and
I
all.
don't think either of them has the discipline to become really good at boxing. Right?
I think election cheating is rampant, frankly, but we won't go there.
It could be rampant all over the place and everything. I just wondering, did anybody watch
all
it?
right. Speaking of the election and our election, for the first time, Harris and Trump are 50-50 in the betting markets.
Yeah, so they're, and I heard that it was narrowing, even though I saw some polls where Trump was still ahead by 2% or 3%, and I think one of them, it might have been Rasmussen, he was still ahead by 7%. So when I saw that,
Rasmussen is got kicked out of 538, the poll aggregator, 6 months ago because they leaned too far to the right. They asked too many leading questions, and they just didn't. So Rasmussen has a long history of delivering right-leaning results.
okay, so that might be the case and everything. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know because Jacoby had actually sent it to me, so I didn't watch it afterwards. But did anybody watch the interview that took place on the National Association of Black Journalists and how it went? Because apparently it was not the best interview that Trump has done, and I think that's putting it politely and everything. But definitely, it was quite.
So, all right. So Scott Jennings, who is a pretty reliable purveyor of right-wing talking points, even he on CNN said that Trump shit the bed.
I just want to know if she's Jamaican or black or Indian.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that Trump tried to bring up in all the end of the debate, because he tried to make this notion that she had only recently become black and that she had been historically Indian, even though, like I said, a number of people know she went to Howard.
I've never heard that before. Before Trump said it.
So,
I think it's hilarious.
Toby, your take on this? You're on mute.
It was honestly, that interview was worse than Biden's performance at the debate, because he started out, he never really answered a question. He started out really attacking the individuals asking the question, the whole birtherism, which is exactly what he did with trying to question her ethnicity. Then he wanted to attack everybody, saying that saying how, everything, I can't hear anything, and you guys are so poor and coming in so late, and I gave up my time. It was honestly the worst thing he could have done in the setting that he was in. It was so bad. Like I said, it was worse than Biden's performance at the debate.
Toby, it was deliberate. It was deliberate.
I agree. He did that on purpose because he is a megalomaniac, an egomaniac. He just loves the attention. And because he hasn't had it, he needed to spark some attention.
Yeah,
and
I think
it goes
so.
by the idea that, hey, any news or any attention on me is not bad attention. So he really came in guns a-blazing and just yelling out craziness, saying the same stuff he says at his rallies, talking about black jobs in front of black people. Then once he got pushback on that, he went back to the same talk. It was just
Well, but the one answer he gave that basically I still am trying to figure it out, and please explain to me because at one point he was asked what is a black job, and he basically said it was any job. So any job that you have apparently is a black job. I mean that was
Well,
his answer.
any job that a black person has is a black job. I
But
mean,
that is
sure.
that right there in itself is such a poor thing. Why not just say it's a job? Why not just say that black people can get this particular job and saying, well, you know, black. It was basically him trying to cover up that whole.
I don't think so.
Even-
I think he was saying is that illegal immigrants, and you
He
guys
said
call them undocumented immigrants, I realize, but illegal immigrants steal black jobs, and they do.
No, they don't, because he even actually
don't?
said that they don't
No,
because
they don't. No, they don't.
undocumented immigrants do a lot of the actual jobs that a lot of people, no matter what color you are in the U.S., they do a lot of jobs that a lot of people don't do. They're not.
Oh, sure,
out stealing
but they
the-
also take jobs that Americans work at,
They don't.
right? I mean,
um,
yes, they do. Yes, they do.
No, they
I
don't.
mean,
And that's
yeah,
not
because they compete for the same jobs and they get paid less because they can get paid less.
no, they don't.
You're shaking
Honestly-
your head. No,
honestly,
you're full
no.
of crap, and you know
No,
it.
it's true. Dan.
Okay, so
I
10
mean,
million people come across the border. They need
Okay.
work, right?
Dan.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Okay, Dan.
I
Dan.
Dad.
Just to point out, undocumented workers, as we just stated, the majority of them, what they're doing is actually the jobs that many people don't even want or don't even
Hi. Hey, they. But
So-
see, they.
do. So,
Hi.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
they.
man.
You see, they
So-
do.
So like doctors and nurses and everything else, undocumented workers aren't doing the doctors and the nurses.
No, that's
undocumented
because they're
workers
not
do-
doctors and nurses. You know,
They-
yes,
yeah,
they
they-
do. They do tend
so-
to take the lower paying jobs. Right.
Okay, so even if you go on that, they're still not taking the restaurant server jobs. They're not doing those. They're doing the
Yeah,
cleanup.
yeah, they are. I've seen it.
They're not
Yeah,
doing the
you
server
have
jobs.
to.
They're doing more
Yeah,
so the cleanup jobs because they're undocumented.
They're doing what now? I didn't hear that.
So
Like
basically, what
cleanup.
Janitors and stuff like that.
it
Housekeepers.
ends up being an issue. It ends up being just a talking point more so than an actual reality. Because in the actual reality, there is no documentation saying that they're stealing jobs. There's nothing.
Hey,
There's
Jacoby, just one question I did have
Job's
for
a
you.
job, right,
Hold on a second.
Jacoby?
Jacoby, I did have a question for you because in defense, and I'm not trying to be defending Trump or anybody else in that camp and everything, but it does seem that there was, and you know, I've done events. I think you've definitely done events. I think Rick has even done events as well. So it does seem that there was some issues because I did hear one of the commentators, it might have been the Fox commentator, and it might have even been the online commentator that said that it was not the best equipment that was there, which is kind of what Trump went into when he started his attack and everything. So was
Yeah.
there some sound issues that were there, and is that a legitimate complaint? I guess that's what I'm asking. I haven't talked to my
Sure.
team because I have friends like
Not a-
Pam Purefoy and
I mean, a couple other details. His people apparently pulled him out a half hour early. And then Harris Faulkner, who's a Fox News correspondent, who's a reliable conservative voice, even she was so freaked out, she said, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah, the complaint about audio and everything. Again, I've done multiple events, been on stage multiple times, done tons of interviews and stuff like that. That isn't a legitimate complaint, especially in the middle of an interview. That is not something that you rely on saying, "Well, you guys suck. This equipment suck." That is just an excuse. And yes, Rick, his people pulled him off because they were afraid of what he was going to say because it was just getting worse and worse. I mean, the whole DEI question, and he goes into attacking the reporter. What does DEI mean to you? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Oh, what does that mean? That's what it means. Those are the three. No. And he's just attacking
Oh,
constantly.
yeah. What does it mean? That's a nice
It
thing to
is
know.
just, you know what the three words mean.
Yeah, but they don't mean that.
Yes,
don't
they do.
mean. No, they don't. No, they don't.
What do they do, Dan? What do they mean?
Well, what they mean is a broader range of things, and you know it, and I know it. It's just code. It's
It
what
means a broader range of things of what?
the whole woke ideology.
What does woke mean?
We had that discussion before. I will not go into it again.
So obviously you don't know what DEI means or woke means because
I
is just
actually do know.
woke. Let me explain to you, since
Let
you
me
obviously
explain
don't
to
know.
you. I obviously
Woke
don't know.
means being aware. That's all it means. It
Don't talk down to me.
I am
don't
going
talk
to
down to
because
you.
you
To
didn't
talk
answer the
down to a
question.
Native American.
What?
How would you? How do you dare do that?
How do I dare do what?
Talk down to a Native
You're an
American
80-year-old
like that.
man, and now you're using excuses and playing cards.
No,
So-
I'm 67. I'm not
Oh, you're
80.
67? Oh, you're a 67-year-old man trying to act like you're a victim. Please stop. So
well, you
again,
act like you're a victim all the time, dude.
You're a 67-year-old man trying to act like you're a victim. Please
Shaquille
stop.
needs to come on. He's back there.
I don't care if he comes on or not. So again, woke means to just be aware. That's all.
Oh, that's not what it means, and you know
That
it.
is what it means.
You're being argumentative.
That is what it means.
It's political. It's political code.
Political.
You know it, and I know it.
It's not political. It woke legitimately. That is where the histrionics come into play. This is why I try.
Histrionics, is that a word?
Yes.
Let him go, Dan. Don't correct him.
Okay.
So again, woke means just to be aware. That's all woke means.
Okay.
It
So
doesn't mean
this is
anything
so
Biden
is not woke because he's always asleep, right?
So let's just come back to this. Let's come back to this thing. I find it.
I'm giving you a bad time.
I find this fascinating. So we've just heard for years and years and years. We've heard everything be about race coming from the left. Okay,
Yeah.
That as soon as somebody on the right says something about race, like, why you bring race into this? Kamala Harris was employed as the VP because she was a black woman, right? It had nothing to do with her qualifications. Now, the fact that she had some qualifications, well, you can say it's incorrect, but look, people view things differently, right? The fact that they actually said they were only going to employ a black woman as the VP, just like Justice Brown, where they said, look, we are only going to put a black woman there. Now, by the way, I've actually said before, I'm glad that she's there. She was a former public defender. I would prefer to see some people from the defense side of the equation be on the Supreme Court. Okay. So it's not that I don't think that she's qualified or anything like that, but let's call it what we're calling it. If you say you're going to employ somebody based on their race, and then somebody else says, hey, you got that job because of your race, like, they're not being racist. That's what you said. I also want to come back to whether or not she's black or whether or not she's Indian.
Yes.
Look, we've all seen pictures of her when she's young. Okay. She's Indian. Now, to me, it would be like if I were to all of a sudden start saying that I'm Indian and that I represent or should be able to represent the viewpoints of Indians. I've openly said many times before, I can't do that. I'm too many generations away from India. Okay. So I have no real understanding of or only have a peripheral understanding of the culture. I mean, I've a little bit more than the everyday person, obviously, because my family are all Indian. But I can't represent the viewpoints of Indians, and I don't feel like I've grown up in the Indian culture. So I think that the point that they're trying to make is you've got a woman who has, throughout her entire career, said that she's Indian.
No, she has not. That's a lie.
And then all
That
of a
is
sudden,
a lie.
all right, thank you, Jacoby. Look, Jacoby, we know that you're not going to agree with anything. Donald Trump can never make.
It is
he can never say
factually
anything.
spoken. She went to an
He can say anything.
HBCU. She
I'm
said
speaking.
she was black. She's claimed that she was black, saying that because
I'm
Donald
sure that I was still
says
talking to Jacoby.
that is a lie.
Talking over.
Okay, you've
again?
expressed that. Let me finish. Okay, you've just come out having a crack at Donald Trump. I've never heard you say anything positive about the man. He never brings up a point that you'll agree with or will concede that other people might see it that way. Okay, I personally think it's reasonable to ask what black culture she's been exposed to if what she's trying to do is to represent black culture. I don't think that she does a very good job of that personally. Okay, but that's just my view.
Went to an HBCU. She claims she's black. Rick is in California. She ran as a black woman.
No, she didn't. No, she didn't. No, she didn't. No, she didn't. And there's video footage of her actually saying that she's Indian. But besides all of that, she didn't even show up to this debate. She didn't to this event. She didn't even show up. Then she says that she's going to come in via Zoom, something that Trump wasn't even allowed to do. He wasn't allowed to come in via Zoom.
It was a scheduling conflict, and
and he doesn't have any.
She's already on the schedule, and they're making an actual date for that.
Do you think if the situation was reversed?
is a
Do you
lie.
think that if the situation was reversed, that if Donald Trump said, look, if she attended and then he said, look, I've got a scheduling conflict, what do you think would happen? Oh, he's so racist, he wouldn't go to the National Association of Black Journalists. I mean, come on now. So
No. Here's
look.
the thing.
So look,
Shaq,
you
here's the
guys
thing.
want to try and
Dan,
co-opt
this is for
these
you.
terms.
This is a question for
You
both
guys
you
want to
and
try
Shaq.
and co-opt these terms,
This is a question
DEI.
for
You
and
want? I
Shaq.
haven't finished. I haven't finished.
Here's the question.
You want to co-opt these terms, DEI and woke and all that sort of stuff.
He was
Then,
asking,
when those terms start
This
being
is a
used
question
as
for you and Shaq.
pejoratives against certain type of behaviour, you then go, well, that's not actually what it means. It's actually got this other definition. But you
No,
don't act like that. That's not how the people that
Here
are
is a
associated with
simple
woke and associated
question.
with DEI act.
Here
That's
is
not how
a
these
simple
programs work.
question for both you and Dan.
I think I'm going to snooze.
This is a question for both you and Dan. Now, every Democrat has admitted Biden really dropped the bomb on that debate, and he was horrible at that debate. Can you two admit that Trump dropped the bomb on that debate and really screwed up? Can you admit that?
I think he did it on purpose. I think it was deliberate.
And that is the problem.
And no, it's not the problem, because he knew what he was facing, and he chose to deal the same way I'm dealing with you right now.
So in other
Because
words,
the
he
whole
goes
thing's
to
a
court
freaking.
black people. He goes full on racist.
He wasn't full on racist. That's just what you think.
Nope.
That's your opinion.
I don't think that he was. I don't think that he did a particularly.
Honestly,
I don't think he did a particularly great job.
Watch the actual interview.
No,
That's
I
the
saw
best
it. I actually saw
No,
it.
that's interesting. You haven't even heard my answer.
I thought it was hilarious.
See, this is typical what I'm talking
Dan
about,
and
right?
I were going back
He
and forth.
hasn't even heard my answer yet,
What's your
and
answer?
then he says, "Well, this is how you and Dan. I'm not a conservative, bro. I keep
Answer
telling
the
you that.
question,
I'm not a
Jack. Did he
conservative. I'm
drop
not a
the
Trump
bomb on
supporter."
that interview? Did he drop the bomb on that interview?
Yeah, he did.
Off the bits that I saw, I didn't watch the whole thing. Off the bits that I saw, I don't think that was one of his greatest performances. I think he could have handled himself much better. Absolutely. But there are things that I'm not going to, where I don't agree with your criticism. So stuff like calling out the DEI stuff, I don't agree with you on that. I think that a lot of people around the world, this is not just America, so you guys look at it from an American perspective, around the world, people are going, hey, look, we're having enough of this. Now, what have we just seen? The tech companies have gotten rid of their DEI, woke employment centers, right? Like all the major companies are getting rid of all this woke stuff. They're not doing it anymore.
So
You're
I
going
would
down
like
a
to
path.
Hold on a second.
interject.
Let's hear from Kim.
I would like to interject just a minute. I'm in between doctor's appointments today, but I want to add something that's very disappointing to me that I want all of y'all to just stop and take a few moments and write down, 3 good things about each candidate. But and I don't want to hear the Adam Lamparello, I can't find any. I want you to get a grip on life. We're all humans, okay? We are all humans, and start acting like it. Now, what I saw last night was not good behavior. Not good behavior at all. And I am going to go so far as to say anyone who supports that behavior will not be in my world, because I don't support that. I don't go around saying those kind of things about people. And Shaq, to your comment, Kamala Harris has always represented herself as that. She even attended universities that are more prominently of Black people. Okay, so get a grip on your lives, and before you open your mouth, go do some homework, all of y'all. Okay,
Well, at least you could get into a Black university, right?
I read everything. I read everything before I even come on this show.
Everything?
Yes, I do.
Everything.
I read before I open my mouth.
Everything.
I
Right.
have.
Dan, please let her speak.
I am.
even read the
This coming from you,
I
Davey.
even read the Obamacare, but I want you guys to be a little more careful about how you talk about people. Okay? Just be a little bit more respectable. This is just, to me, what was said last night was inexcusable.
Excuse me, Kim.
And I will say
That's your
this,
opinion,
my
isn't it, Kim?
family is predominantly Trump. And I'm not even saying Republican. They are predominantly Trump supporters. But I have heard them say on time and again that man needs glue stick instead of chapstick.
Yeah, he does.
But I don't think it's funny, Don, and I don't think being a bully is funny, and that's all they are. So grow
Nah.
up.
Excuse me, Kimberly. Excuse me. You have just you tell us to be nice. You then go around and you say things like you just said. Well, people who support this, I'm going to cut them out of my world. Right? Like where do you think? Sorry, hang on. Where do you think? Where do you think the division comes from? Where do you think the division comes from? I gave all sorts of compliments to Kamala Harris last week and the week before. Okay. No, but no. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. Let me respond to you. Let me respond to you. The fact that you have okay, I can't respond. Fine, no worries. I'll just be quiet. If you're not going to let me speak, I'll let you and Tatovi go. Can I have a response or not?
Respond.
The fact that you have a problem with stuff that Trump says doesn't mean that other people who see things a little bit differently are like inhuman. Okay, the fact that you believe that she's always identified herself as being black. I look at the photographs of her. I know what my family looks like, what photographs of my family looks like. Okay, I don't see much black culture in those photographs. I see Indian high caste culture. Okay, and there are all sorts of other Indian culture. Okay, Chatobi, I'm speaking. No, just give me a minute. Okay, but what you guys are doing is you guys are now lecturing. You're lecturing Dan and you're lecturing me about being nice after you've just called for like 8 years almost. You've called him Hitler. You've said that he's worse than a dictator. He wants to kill people. All these things, and his supporters are all racist. Like you guys have like non-stop done that. And then you come after somebody like me, who's a moderate in the centre, who doesn't really care too much for your politics, and say that I've got to go and check myself, that I've got to go check my facts, that I'm the kind of person that should be cut out of somebody's life because I don't get as incensed about your political issues as you do. Come on,
yeah,
now.
You do. You're very emotional and not very rational.
It's Rick's turn.
All right. So
I think you need to get a life on that one because she has.
You need to get a life.
You know what, Kim? I represent. I have worked for small businesses. I have run my own small businesses, and I have represented hundreds of thousands of small businesses when I was involved in the Chamber of Commerce. So yes, I'm going to have a slight right-wing slant to me because I don't like seeing government regulations that interrupt and make it harder for small businesses to survive. That does not mean I'm a conservative. That doesn't mean I'm a conservative.
All right, let me say something. All right. When she was in law school more than 35 years ago, she was president of the Black Law Students Association.
There you go, people.
Previous to that, she was in the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, which is a black sorority. That was starting in 1983. So 40 years ago, she was black. She went to Howard.
So you're talking about the law school that's sort of a mid-range secondary law school.
Yeah, fine.
Graduated from.
Dan, what law school did you go to? Dan, what law school did you go to?
I went to BYU.
You went to BYU? You went to Brigham Young University for law? Yes. That's what you did?
That's and to University of Florida, which is in the top 2 of tax programs in the
really?
country.
When you went,
Can
I graduate, and I was number 1 in the state bar, asshole.
You passed the state bar.
Oh yes, I did.
You know what? She did too. So great job.
No, second time around. Yeah.
Did she pass the state bar?
Only second time.
She did.
That's because she's a lazy person who does her own
You're
stuff.
sitting at home. She's in her 60s.
I can't imagine why your country's so divided. Hey, I can't imagine why conservatives just sit there and go, I'm not going to bother. I'll just vote the way I'm going to vote, and I won't bother explaining it. I can't imagine why that would be the case. Let Dan speak. Let Dan speak.
No, I was going to let Dan speak.
I was going to let Dan speak and everything.
Oh, you want Sasha to speak? So you come in, cut off Dan the whole way through, and then it's like, okay, well, let's just move to Sasha. Wow.
Hold on a second, both of you, because I definitely want to hear from Dan. I definitely want to hear from Dan and everything. But
well, why can't we hear what Dan was saying? Let's have Dan finish.
Because Sasha hasn't had a chance to speak, Shaq. Let Sasha speak.
So you cut off Dan while he was speaking, and then you won't let him finish. You're going to go to another guest.
I didn't
Nobody cut off Dan and everything. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Before we get to Sasha, I do have a question because you said that Howard is a second tier or a third tier school. North Carolina Central University is actually considered a primary school. As a matter of fact, I think one of our governors went to that school, who is actually a European American and everything. So to assume
So you guys, you're gonna now pile in on top of it, Mark. He said something. He was going on to say something else. You guys have all cut him off because of the comment about it being a mid-tier thing, and then you want to make that the issue rather than letting the man actually say what he wanted to say.
Well, okay, let me be fair here.
Finish his
The
point.
law school she went to
You just cried about
just
David.
creeped into the top 50. That's what she did.
That
law school just creeped into the top 50 in the United
I
States.
hear Sasha speak, and you know what? I don't take
It had a
that.
68% graduate bar passing rate. She
It's
failed.
not where you go, it's how you apply it. And apparently, Dan, you have disappointed the world. Sasha, your turn.
Oh, that's defamatory per se. You got my lawsuit. I'm
Go for
done.
it.
You
Sasha,
are
your turn.
sued.
Sasha, your turn.
All I want to say is this. We have both
Loser.
campaigns right now. They are finding the best possible way to insult the other side.
Thank you.
They're not discussing any proposals, any policies at all. Absent, zero on both sides. This is incredible campaign that's never been in the history of United States and probably any country in the world, when there are two candidates left and they are not discussing policies. They're not discussing what they're going to do. Trump, particularly, he's talking about the past, his 4 years as a president, how wonderful it was, and so on. But he's not saying at all what he's planning to do in his 4 years if he's elected. This is apparently, actually, if he does say something, it's rather scary when he's saying to Christians, oh, vote for me, this is your last election. There will be no need more for election. There will be, I'll fix everything. That's the end of it. So, okay, so you may say that, well, it's kind of a joke. What's so funny about this
It's
joke?
not a joke.
At what point I have to laugh? What did
That's
they
not
mean?
what he said. That's not what he said.
Oh, sorry, what did he say? Correct.
That's not what he said, and you know it.
What exactly did
It
he
is
say?
what he
Okay,
said.
so Sasha, you're smart enough, and Kim, you're smart enough. Jatovia, I don't know about you, but Shaquille, I know you
Oh,
are.
that's a lawsuit. I'm going to go with my lawsuit, Dan. You call
You
me
go ahead and
stupid.
sue me for saying you're stupid. It's okay. It's not- you have to actually has to be actual malice. It's not you're just dumb. Okay, Rick, you're an intelligent guy.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. What do you think about all this mess? I'm just kidding mostly.
So I want to.
I don't know. I just want us to get back to like discussing
I
like
want to know
facts
one
and stuff.
thing. I want if I wish I could ask the questions at the debate, and I was talking with David about this. One of my major concerns is, everyone talks about immigration control and the undocumented people that are here, and very few of them are actual criminals based on the way that they tried to exploit it. But somewhere someone said that there were 20 million of them. I actually spoke to David. He assumes maybe 10. People tend to escalate the number depending on what side of the world you're on. But if it were 20, my question would be, if it were 20 million, Trump is saying we're going to get rid of them and we're going to get rid of them just like that. I'm a human and I don't want anyone disposed of in an inhuman way. He says we're not going to use the, airplanes and buses and stuff like that. How does he intend to get rid of 20 million people? And where are you going to deport them to or put them? I mean, I see something very horrific in his statement, and it's scary because that's a lot of people. And I know that there's a better way to do this, and probably the way he's going to, but you just don't take 20 million people and dump them somewhere.
Well, they found their way here. They can find their way back. And, so what you do is you push them back over the Mexican border and you say, find your way
Well,
home.
too bad
Goodbye.
your ancestors didn't find their way back. I'd have a better country.
Hey, Dan, just hold on a second. If you're sending them
Let me come in. Let me come in on
That
this
was rude,
immigration
wasn't it?
No, hold on a
Why
second.
don't you go somewhere? I don't care. I mean,
let me come in on this
Spain,
immigration. Let me come in on this immigration thing. All right. how America deals with its immigration has nothing to do with me. It doesn't have any effect on my, on me trading the markets in America. I don't really have any skin in the game. I will just say this. One of the issues and one of the reasons why you'll find that immigrants, legal immigrants that follow the process are so anti-illegal immigration is because they feel as though those people are jumping the queue. Now, we had a beautiful young lady that came onto our show a couple of years ago who was a dreamer. She was educated here, educated there in the United States. She went to school there, and people are saying, well, look at the great contribution that she's going to make. Now, I don't want to see someone like her get hurt. However, there could also be a child who was in India whose parents didn't come to the United States, whose child has now grown up having waited for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years to try and get in, who can't say, hey, look, I've had the benefit of an education in the United States. So therefore, they're less attractive. So what you're now doing is you're saying to people who want to do it legally, okay, this isn't going to apply to me because I come from Western countries. So if I wanted to immigrate to America, it'd be very easy. But if I was trying to come from a third world country or a poorer country, I'd be better off, based on the way that things are working at the moment in America, I would be better off trying to come in illegally and seeking asylum than what I would be if I tried to do it legally. And I think that that is part of the problem. Now, the issues here are really complicated. I just want to come back to one last thing if I can. Kimberly, when you have a very strong opinion against Donald Trump, that's fine. But what has happened to me since I've been on this network for 4 years, how it all started was because I wasn't prepared to take a strong position against Donald Trump. That's not the same as me agreeing with him. And when people like yourself act as though anybody who doesn't call him out all of the time are somehow your enemy and should be cut out of your life, what you're doing is you're making an enemy out of people who are just well-meaning people who don't see it the way you do. And you've also made the point several times now that you have read everything. Look, I think I'm a reasonably knowledgeable person, Kimberly. I don't have the time to read every single thing and watch every single thing. So I make some assumptions, and that doesn't mean I'm a bad person.
Another very important issue. Everyone seems to bring up all the jobs that the illegal immigrants take from the lower income sector. But what I really want to address is all the jobs that were taken from our middle class hardworking when the big corporations and rich men outsourced all of our highly educated jobs to China, India, and other countries that truly hate us. And they took our jobs away from us, highly educated jobs. Now that's a big issue. And then they turn around and then they say, good job, big corporation, here's a tax deduction for you for doing that.
Yeah, because you guys, because your side of politics drives up the cost of wages, you drive up the cost of labor, and then you wonder why they move overseas.
Just to tap in on
taking the jobs away from the hardworking middle class who are highly educated. Let's talk about what are we going to do to get those jobs back. Now,
yes, that's right. But Kimberly, you have to force the middle class to buy American-made goods then.
And that is a real fact.
One of the
companies didn't steal it like the Republicans try to put you. We gave it away. We let Big Corp give it away. Now Ford, I have to commend Ford.
Hang on, Kimberly. Sorry. Republicans. The biggest donors to the Democrats are the big corporations, the big tech companies that ship all their jobs offshore for the same reason, because it's cheaper, because unions have pushed up the price of labor in your country so high that they can't compete internationally, and the middle class, if they want the jobs to stay there, should start buying American-made stuff. They don't. Why not? Because it's too expensive.
The big problem, there are a lot of problems with immigration from, just the outsourcing, just as you guys were arguing about that, which is a real issue, and that happens. But Shaq, to get back to the point about what you were talking about, how people are waiting too long and then feeling that they have to jump the line, that is a real issue. And that is something that we are not addressing because of the fact we're doing the very rudimentary, simplistic ideas of, hey, let's build a wall, let's do a mass deportation and stuff like that because we attack those immigrants through.
That's absurd to Toby, because if that was the cause of the problem, then what you'd be saying is the problem only existed in 2016.
You don't have personal experience. I do on this fact. I've actually been to
More of my family live in the United States than any other country. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? More of my family have immigrated to the United States than any other country on earth. What are you talking about? I've got no experience.
I know you.
Please.
So please just.
I don't hate you. I don't hate you.
Please close your
I
mouth.
don't hate you. And by the way, did you think you were going to get a rise out of me? Did you think you were going to get a rise out of me again for using that word? No, I'm not going to let you finish. I'm not going to let you finish. You use that word. He used that word, Mark. That's exactly the word that we had the argument over. Him attributing the word hate to me.
He is in the
right? He's now saying it again, trying to get a rise out of me. I don't care.
I'm trying to make a point about
he was
immigration.
trying to make a point about his own experience with immigration.
Yes.
So you let him make the point. And I understand that you say that you're...
Mark, as soon as I went quiet, he then came in and said that I hated him, knowing that that's what set me off last time when we had the huge argument on the way to the airport.
I want to finish the point about immigration. So yes, there is an issue with immigration where people wait too long in places like Mexico, Venezuela, South America. I mean, the whole area. And that whole problem comes into play where people have waited there for 5 years and can't get across the border. So a lot of times, yes, a lot of them do try and jump the line, as you say. But the problem is what we haven't done in terms of immigration, in terms of fixing that system, adding more people in the litigation field, which could help out and actually push more people through, because we've got a backlog of 5 to 10 plus years. So if you're sitting in Mexico trying to escape some type of persecution that's going on in your area, what is the easiest thing for you to do? If you're looking for work and you're a dreamer and you're upset, yes, right now what we're doing is pitting two people who come from the same community against each other, saying, well, these people are jumping the line. No, it is our fault that for decades upon decades, because the last immigration bill that we've actually really pushed through came through the Reagan administration.
1983, 41 years ago.
Yeah. So if we can,
let me ask you a question here, right? So firstly, I talked about the immigration from countries themselves.
Let me finish, and then you can ask.
Are you going to be going much longer?
Let me finish, and then you can ask. So if we could add some type of border policy where we're adding more people to judges, lawyers to take on these cases, that would help out that line tremendously. That would also get people to the point that they need to get to. And then if you want to talk about the back end where you're talking about companies hiring people, there is a system that they're supposed to use. A lot of companies do not use that system to check if they're illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants. But they do that to save money. Just as you point out, yes, we have our unions are great on one end, but they also harm us in another end. But if we could have some better negotiations in that workforce field, that could honestly help, and better litigation in that arena too. That could help the thing that Dan was talking about, complaining that, oh, they're taking our jobs, which they're really not, because a lot of the people are where they're taking our jobs are utilizing that system, which is blocking a lot of people. However, a lot of other jobs aren't. So that allows a lot of people for them to hire at cheap wages. So yes, if we could somehow increase the lawyer field, law schools dealing with judges, dealing with lawyers and everything else to help out with litigation, that would help out our immigration policy tremendously, especially dealing from experience from my family. That would have helped us out tremendously.
So currently there are only
sorry, Rick, I was waiting.
No. Currently there are 700 immigration judges. Even doubling the number to 1,400 wouldn't solve the backlog until 2032.
You had a question, Shaquille?
No, let's go to Steve Rao. He's been waiting as well, because I know how anti anybody who's on that tiny bit on the right to for you guys, how much we need to be shut down. So Dan, I will sit back and just chill out. You guys take it away.
No,
I don't get a word in anyway.
You had a question. Dan had a question. So you glad?
No. I'm done. Okay. Well, let's just go back and forth. Jacoby, Rick, and then go to Steve Rao. Maybe put Sasha in there occasionally as well. All right, forget about the rest of us.
I did not say that.
Dan had a question. This is Shatner. What's yours, Dan?
Dan's not interested. Dan's not interested either. He just said that. Let's go to Steve Rao.
Oh, Dan, you're talking for Dan. Let Dan talk.
I did just speak for
I
Dan.
don't know
because that's what Dan
why
just said.
we just can't keep the illegal migrants in Mexico until they're vetted. We have laws in this country. You can get here legally if you follow the proper procedures. Yes, it takes a long time. That's because there are only so many slots. United Nations has been funding this mass immigration effort through Panama and others. It's a deliberate strategy on the part of the United Nations and Rockefeller Foundation and Soros and a number of others to get people across the border. Biden administration has been following along and agreeing and been complicit in this strategy. Oh, it's documented. Jacoby, don't shake your head. So the point is that we're seeing this mass illegal immigration that's done as a deliberate policy response by the United Nations and the Biden administration. It's a deliberate policy that's called the population shift. That's what they're trying to do. This is all documented in the United Nations orders and other things. They're trying to shift populations from one area to the other. You know, the better policy would be to help fund those countries to keep people in those countries so that they have, you know, there's economic opportunity. It's cheaper to do that than to pay for illegal immigrants in the United States with respect to medical care and social services and everything else, especially, like I said, when they're tying up jobs of Americans and legal residents who are here legitimately. You know, I hear you're ranting and raving about this, Jacoby, and you know, you have an opinion, and that's okay. But it's not our fault that they're breaking our laws. Keep them in Mexico. Maybe if we need illegal immigrant employment, we created an illegal immigration employment line and hire them from the border.
So,
I mean,
so they're doing it. They're doing it. They're doing it in a very unfair way in the first place. And so, like as I was actually saying before, which wasn't responded to, which was there are people that don't leave their home countries and come to the border. They don't bother doing that because they try to do it legally and they try and do it the right way, and they end up in a really long queue. But the issue with immigration, this is not a Biden-Trump issue. The idea that this is an issue because Trump and the wall and this and that would imply that the issue only came up in America in 2016. I've heard people talking about undocumented aliens, illegal immigrants, et cetera, my whole life when they're talking about the United States. But the issue of a massive influx of immigrants who do not end up becoming part of the countries that they immigrate to. They hold on to too much of their old stuff. They never learn the language. They never, they never sort of mix in with everybody else. That issue is not an issue unique to the United States. The Canadians have gotten upset in the past and said to Justin Trudeau, hey, like we're vets and we're waiting for, 3 months or 6 months, whatever long period of time to get to hospital. And now we've got, immigrants that have come in, illegals. At one point he was criticized, Sasha, if you remember, because it was a former terrorist that was actually able to access healthcare in Canada. So it's an issue in Canada as well. Is that Trump's fault? It's an issue in Europe. We just had Brexit occur in 2020, part of which was because of immigration. Is that also Trump's fault? We've now seen anti-immigration movements and right-wing movements come up all across Europe, including the Scandinavian left-wing countries in Scandinavia. Are they all just Trump supporters? No. The issue comes up here in Australia. The issue comes up in New Zealand. The issue is coming up all over the Western world. There is some talk about this issue in Malaysia at the moment. The people are talking about it in Singapore. The Japanese are talking about it. So are we seriously going to suggest that the immigration challenges that face the whole world are somehow unique when they're in the United States? Of course not. What's unique about the United States is the people who are just at each other all the time. They can't have any kind of rational, normal conversation about immigration and just want to attack each other. And unfortunately, that kind of pathetic, ridiculous, unhelpful behavior is influencing the rest of the world in how we communicate with each other. Now, Steve is here. Let's hear from him.
Hold on a second.
As what was pointed out earlier, this has been an issue for a long time. As I stated, and Rick just pointed out, the last time anything was done on the immigration policy, that was back with Reagan 41 years ago. So that's why it's been a decade-long thing. On top of that, it's become a political football, which is easy to attack the other side with. And because of using it as a political football, you can gain votes that way. You can scare people. You can, this is where, Dan, I'm not saying that you're doing this, but I'm saying that this is happening because some of the things that you said, Dan, in terms of, oh, well, they're taking our jobs, it's the population shift and so on and so forth. That is the stuff that's used by individuals in extreme areas, which spread throughout our own ethos in our society. And it's called the white replacement syndrome or the white replacement theory. And that has been in our ethos. And
this was something that came out of the NAACP. This was something that the left. But you always interrupt me, and you want to come in with facts. This was something that the black community was concerned about and had expressed.
We're going to sit here for the last 6 minutes doing this. So what I'm pointing out is that was an example from one side. Both sides have used it as a political football. Both sides. So right now, one side actually did try to legitimately fix it. And they actually had bipartisan support from both sides trying to fix it. That was both when one of the lead conservative Republicans on the border wall was working together with a group of individuals, created a bill that was bipartisan, had some support from the Democrats, and it was actually going to pass. But then that gets blocked. That is a problem because it is a political football. And just as you're saying, Shaq, yes, it shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it is. And that division has happened. And until we can legitimately say, okay, well, let's take the bill that was just put on the floor and really discuss it and debate it and actually push that through, because that actually would have helped the border bill or the border with money for the wall, with support for what I was talking about in terms of lawyers, judges, and so on and so forth. It would have helped out the border security themselves. It would have given them raises and hired more border security and so on. So there are issues. And no, it isn't just a U.S. thing. It is a global thing. Every country is struggling with it. It didn't start just with Trump. It's been here since people have started migrating from country to country. So that's since every country was incepted. So it's just a thing. You're right. We should be able to talk. The bill that was put on the floor this year should have passed. But if we're honest, there was one individual that said he wanted it as a political talking point. He legitimately said that. And we cannot be honest with ourselves unless we're honest about saying that.
Just really quickly, because we only got another minute or two to go. A couple of things. One, assimilation. So this whole notion, I've barely spoken today, so don't laugh at me, Shaquille, because the whole conversation about.
Well, then why don't you give it back to Toby? You might as well go for another 2 minutes and send out the show. He doesn't want to be interrupted.
Assimilation and everything along those lines has been going on for a number of years. That's been a conversation that even took place here in Durham, North Carolina, with the African American community as to whether they wanted to assimilate into after segregation and all along those lines and everything. So that has been a conversation that has been even in our own community. And to Dan's point, and to Dan's point that he said in earlier everything, you are making an assumption that may not be all that fair, because you're saying to push them back to Mexico. And one of the things I'm hearing from people that are in the Mexican community is that they're not all from Mexico, because we're assuming that the Latin American community is monolithic, and it is very much made up of a lot of different countries that are from there.
Mark, that's not what's being said. First of all, whether or not the black community of America wants to assimilate or not into the United States is a completely separate issue, because your history is unique. Okay, you're the only group of people that were taken over there as slaves and had your labor stolen from you and were treated, in a horrific way. It's a completely unique and different situation to all the other immigrant groups. Okay, in relation to whether they're taking black jobs, this is not a right-wing or white supremacist talking point. This is something that the black community brought up. And then all of a sudden, when Republicans started saying, hey, this is an issue, then all of a sudden, and when Trump repeated it, former Democrat, when he repeated it, then all of a sudden it was racist to say it. Okay? And as for pushing them back to Mexico, I think that the idea that Mexico should be more responsible for allowing this many people to come into their country illegally, knowing that they're going to try and cross the border into the United States, that the United States should say something to Mexico about that. Absolutely. If we had a neighboring country that was doing that with us here in Australia, we would say something about it. And we have. We've spoken to Indonesia about this. Okay, because it's a much harder process because we're an island. But we've spoken to Indonesia and said, hey, you bring all these people in and they jump on boats and they try and come into Australia. It's not good enough. Okay, we've spoken to our neighbouring countries. Why is it unreasonable for people in the United States to say to Mexico, hey, Mexico, knock it off?
And just to point out, since we're coming to the close, and this is where we can all agree, because the reason why the numbers for border crossings have dropped is because the Biden administration did exactly what you said, Shaq. They went down to Mexico and they had negotiations done, and they actually got something done at the border. Hence the reason why border crossings.
So again, you want to have the final word saying this is where we can all agree, and then say something that you know Dan's not going to agree on. That you know that I don't see it that way and I don't care because it's not my country. You know that Dan doesn't agree with you on that, but you're going to leave it with that. You know, that's sort of untruth. It's a typical Jacoby playbook. Typical Jacoby playbook.
Legitimately just said that we should go to Mexico and talk to Mexico to stop people from coming across the border. I just pointed out that is exactly what happened and what caused the actual border crossings to drop.
Jacoby, well done, my friend. You'll be able to walk away from today's podcast and you'll be able to go, wow, I got him there. Look how smart I am. You are such a genius,
Sasha,
mate.
We gotta play chess one of these days, Sasha. Me and you.
Looking forward to that. That should be.
Oh, hang on, Sasha. He'll try and teach you how to play chess by the time you're done.
No, I don't. I don't play victim like you and try and be hateful.